page two, just so it's easy to find in the future and revisit if people want to do that.
Yeah, that would be good.
So I wanted to, not to stretch out the meeting or anything, but we've only been on the call for like 10 minutes. To talk about a little bit more from Tuesday, what we were talking about, just because we've got some folks who weren't on the call Tuesday, and just kind of revisit what we were talking about Tuesday. Does anybody that was on the call remember what we talked about Tuesday?
Part of it was like the luxury market and all of that.
Yeah, we kind of squirreled a little
Yeah.
bit. Does anybody remember the actual intent of the call from the beginning of it?
Don't use just.
Yes.
Good
Who was
job.
that?
Who was said that?
Meredith.
Way to go, Meredith. You and the gold star. You've got an ECU sweatshirt on, and that's my second favorite sweatshirt on the call, right behind Krista's. Yeah, and I can't tell what Adam has on, so I apologize. Oh, Janine has one on too. Oh, the Cubs. All right. Well, that's good too. That's tight. You guys
Our
are tight.
losing effort in the 2017 playoffs.
Nice. Well, I want to revisit just for folks who weren't on the call, but just because we did squirrel a little bit, and I think it really is an important thing to keep in mind. Let's talk about a little bit more about what that means to everybody from our discussion before, and just in general.
Said John.
I did. So part of it is recognizing it and calling it out. And I just want to make sure that you're doing that. See how I plant those seeds intentionally? See who's paying attention? That's my excuse anyways. So let's talk about it a little bit more. Just getting rid of the word just. Why? How do you use it?
Just wanted to reach out, et cetera, et cetera. We remember that we were talking about how it acts like you're asking for permission instead of being confident. You know, it lacks confidence and presents I have to ask for permission.
I think that's really probably the tip of the iceberg
I think
takeaway.
it kind of makes it sound like an afterthought, like I'm just doing it because, like, I don't want to, I'm just doing it.
Yeah. Checking the box.
Yeah.
Anybody else? How about for you folks who've been doing this for a little bit longer? Do you find yourself still using that? Are you aware of it when you say it? Does it just kind of come out like, do you use it as a space filler?
It's a filler word that you say when you're not really sure what to say, I think.
Like a reflex.
Kind of like I was saying the other day, I think I use it more with people. I don't really use it much anymore. I think I've done a good job of cutting it out for news and qualifies. But I use it with people that I'm kind of in the weeds with, and I'm still trying to cut that out. Especially, just because you've got someone who's ready to roll, you still need to get them to be urgent. And, sometimes when you use language like that, it makes it seem a little less like time is of the essence. It's a little bit more flippant.
I feel like when I use it, it's when, kind of to your point, when I'm not prepared to have a conversation with somebody, when I'm not doing something intentionally, when I don't have a reason or a specific thing to discuss. And that's kind of what it's all about. It's you put yourself in a situation where you're less likely to use it. But how do you do that? Get in a position where you're more prepared to have a conversation with them about something specific. Go with the goal to, accomplish something when you talk to them. Right, Crystal? What do you think?
I agree. I've been trying to eliminate that word for a while, and I think I do. I catch myself using it sometimes, and now I don't think I noticed it before, but now I will.
All right.
I just wanted to say hi.
I'm just here to sell real estate.
I tried to take the just out of it and just says, I'm here to sell homes.
It's funny because I remember that. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I think it's just a habit. The thing is, like, breaking a bad habit is hard.
Yeah.
I agree.
nursing
That's a
how
good
to have
point.
the the aides, they'd say, well, I'm just a nurse's aide. I can't, da, da, da. I was like, stop, don't say just, you're super important. You're very valuable. I can't do my job without you. Or, you know, other nurses, we would find ourselves saying, well, I'm just the nurse. No, stop saying I'm just the nurse. You are a nurse. Own that, be proud of that, and value that, because it's an important role. So just definitely
I love that.
yeah, just definitely takes the, I don't know, what's a good word to say? It diminishes
Yeah.
a lot, I feel like.
I think that's a good way to describe it. I think another point is use that as an example when you're making a real estate call. So what do we usually call and say, hey, I'm just checking in to see where you are with your home search. Well, talk about minimize it. You're just checking in to help somebody make a couple $100,000 decision. Think
Right.
about it that way. You're already setting yourself up to seem less than what you really are. I think that's really part of it. So like we talk about a lot, it's about being intentional. It's about thinking about what you're doing and not just putting yourself on autopilot, because that's when those things happen. When you set up like that. And when you don't go with intent to actually make something happen, when you're just checking a box is when it happens, I think, in my experience. Anybody else have anything else they want to share? That's it. You guys are so easy to talk to. You just are like sponges. You just soak it in and everything. All right. Nate, what do you think?
Sorry, I've been in and out. I'm in the middle of BFB on my way to Southport. Sorry.
Well, we just want your input.
I think it's a good idea. Vegas is definitely on the table for next year.
Wrong input. Get out.
What are some words, like some other words, not just, but are there other words that should be no-nos?
Yes, no questions. I try to stay away from those.
Hey.
Like,
Questions that don't really move the ball.
Ooh, I know one. I'd
Yeah.
love to help you out. I'd love to show you this. I'd love.
Brother love.
Why do you not like that, Nate?
yeah, I don't think that's terrible.
Let me see.
You want to see
I'm
them?
just
Say
telling
hi.
you- I'm just telling you from some things that and I'm not saying it's the way, but communication-wise, it's one of the things that some people think is not a good thing to say because it's overly used and then it sounds ingenuine.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's
I
good
also
reasoning.
feel like, do you understand what I'm saying? Nate doesn't like that one either.
Does that make sense? We're not supposed to say
Yeah,
Does
that.
that make sense? That was it. Does that make
Oh yeah, makes sense.
Condescending.
And I'm very cognizant of using that now.
Yeah.
And then I apologize, which leads to another thing that we should get away from saying it now. Sorry.
Sorry, that's a big one.
Quit apologizing to people.
Per my previous email, dumbass.
That's acceptable. That's
our phone conversation.
That's acceptable when talking to other agents that
Agents.
act like a-holes.
right.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's not squirrel too bad. What else though? That was a great question, Meredith. What are some that you're aware of that, or you think are questionable that you use that you're trying not to use as you're figuring this out? Do you have any in particular? Meredith?
I can't really think of any more phrases like, apologizing or stuff like that. Just trying to be more direct and confident that I can help people.
And I think using those terms, some of these things that we're talking about kind of shows a lack of confidence
Mm.
when you use them. especially if you're trying to use filler words, apologizing,
Right.
asking permission to do stuff. You know, one script that I try to talk about and use is, you know, I don't ask permission to connect people with a lender. Okay, this is what's next. I'm going to send you an email intro to connect you to my lender so you can check out their loan application online and start a conversation so we can get a gauge on where you are. We need to do that before we start looking at houses. Not, hey, is it okay if I send you the link for the loan app for my lender? Will you talk to them? You're the expert. You got to guide them. So don't ask for permission. Just tell them, hey, this is what's next. And it's not being rude. It's just about taking control, because they came to you because they want somebody to guide them, right? So be the guide. Anybody have anything else?
I think just another thing to try to consider is take out the I's and me's and replace them with, you know, we's, and make it more inclusive to the client, because they'll appreciate that. You know, it's a team effort where we are going to go out and find the house that you want.
I think that's a really good point too. Use the we instead of the singular, right? Show them that you're in it together.
I think that's also
One thing-
important when you're talking about working with a lender, right? It should be a team effort. And even if they're not using one of our lenders, we still need to be in conflict with that lender, working as a team to get them to the closing table. And sometimes I think people don't understand that. That's, you know, again, especially if they're not using one of our people. So we need to get them to understand that we all do this together as a team to move the football down the field. You got to be in touch with that lender early in the game.
That's right. I will script and say, you know, me and the lender are basically the right and left hand for you as part of this transaction. So if we're not talking to each other, if we're not working together, then it puts us all at a disadvantage. So let's make sure that we are all on the same page. That way you're better prepared to make a decision.
Yep.
Chance for this is higher. Another thing, go ahead.
I have to go because we are about to go do a second showing on this house. So I will talk to you all later.
All right, bye.
Bye, Nate.
Bye.
Another thing to think about, which I think would be a whole nother scripts topic, would be thinking about how listening to understand, which we've talked about before, but not to reply. Okay. Make sure that you're taking in what people are giving out before you craft your reply. Because if you're thinking about what you're going to say back to somebody before they finish saying it, you're not listening to them. Right. And that's why we have the acknowledge and ask piece, right? Somebody says something, you listen, you repeat it back to them so you show that you're listening and you understand. Then you ask a question to move the conversation further down the line. Also, sometimes we have to resist, you know, relating the story to ourselves, like giving an example of when we went through that. Sometimes it's very helpful and can make the relationship stronger. Sometimes it just sounds like we want to talk about ourselves. So we have to be very careful about that too. Again, it's just being intentional with what you're doing and your thoughts. Because it's all about providing value and making the relationship stronger. Because we're not selling real estate, we're selling ourselves. It's about the relationship and getting folks to pick you and choose you and trust you to make this hugely important decision. Other thoughts? Birthday girl, you got anything?
No, I'm struggling with what to do. You know, like I have a really good conversation with them, and now it's like, where do I go from there? Because I'm like, well, what am I going to call them back about, you know, and bug them? I feel like, but now it seems like the tables are kind of turning and they're calling me or they're texting me. And even like this one guy I thought was completely ignoring me, and he wasn't opening our emails, never answered the phone, and he just randomly called me and was like, hey, I've been getting your voicemails, and I'm in Surf City and I want to buy a beach house. And now I'm like, okay, well, what's your max price range? And he's like, I don't really have one. So I'm like, okay, dude, you know,
Well,
Let's go.
yeah. And so he's like, you know, send me some links. I did that. And now, you know, now he's like, well, let's set something up for after the new year because I'm traveling. So I don't know, maybe it'll work out, but I feel like I see it turning for me. Like all the work I've put in, so fingers crossed it really does. And so I don't have my camera on. Santa brought me a new laptop, and I am challenged by it.
well, a
figure it
couple
out.
of takeaways from that, Ashley. I think I'm glad that you're starting to see the result. It takes a while, right? We all know on average you got to contact somebody between 6 or 7 times, something like that, before you move the ball, right? So it's good that you're starting to see the results of what you're putting in. It also is a testament that what you're doing, even though you're not necessarily connecting with people those first couple of times, is resonating and making a difference if they're coming back to you and they're replying, right? So you're doing a good job of using the tools at your disposal, even if they don't necessarily get back to you right away. What I want you to be very cognizant of and intentional with is your mindset, because you said it. You don't want to feel like you're bugging people. You got to
Yeah.
make sure that you don't feel like you're bugging people. That's a decision you have to be cognizant of and just make.
Well, like I have one guy who looks on the website all the time, but every time I call him, he hangs up on me. Like he answers, and when I say who I am, he hangs up. So I'm like, okay, I'm probably not going to call him anymore after the third hang up. So
I would leave that in a voicemail.
yeah, well,
Hey,
he
every time
always
I call you,
answers.
you hang up on me. I'm only calling because, or I'm calling because you're very active on my website and I want to help you.
Yeah,
What's your
Have
deal?
have you texted him?
I have texted him and he doesn't reply, but he answers when I call, and he acts like he's going to have a conversation. And then when I say like who I am, he just click. So I'm like, okay. The first time I thought maybe he got disconnected because he was so responsive to like, you know, how are you? Blah blah blah. You know.
Well, some people are weirdos. I wouldn't, don't give up on it. It's like Doug was saying, the Boomtown stats show that, not for this guy specifically, but in general, most leads you have to dial them 7 times before you get them on the phone and have a conversation with them. I think
Yeah.
not on our team, but I think the industry standard, if you look at some data, most people quit calling after the second or third attempt. How many deals would you lose over the course of a calendar year or your career if you quit calling after the second or third missed call? So stay on the guy, maybe send him a text or an email. He may not answer, but hey, it's obviously, you're not interested in talking on the phone, but I know you're interested in homeschool. You're on my website all the time. What's the best way for me to communicate with you or to assist you? How can I help you move the ball forward? What kind of questions can I answer for you?
Yeah,
And
give him the
to
opportunity.
the point, Ashley, even if he doesn't respond to that, you're still showing that you're providing him value. Now, obviously, you're probably not going to do that forever, but if you do that once a month for 6 months, you're not really losing all that much time.
Right. I have another question. What do you guys say to someone who you call them, they're like pre-approved, they filled out the questionnaire, they're pre-approved 1 to 3 months, like in my opinion, they're a hot buyer, but then you call them and they say, I just want to be upfront with you that I'm working with another realtor. And I just always kind of end it with, you're welcome to continue to browse on our website. And if it doesn't work out, then I'm always available to, to take your calls. And I put them in the trash so that I'm not wasting time on them, but I do still see that they're very active on our website. I mean, do you kick people off like that, or you just let them keep looking?
My response is, that's great that you're connected with somebody. I'm not in the business of stepping on any toes, but feel free to browse the website, and if anything changes, I'm happy to help. Some people are super committed to their client. You can have the conversation and ask them. Depends on how much you want to work it, I feel like, but you can ask them if they've signed with anybody yet, or how far into the process are they with the realtor. And then I usually just put them in the trash. I had one lady the other day register. She says that she was working with, she was very nice about it, but I didn't want to spin my wheels with her, knowing that it's probably going to go nowhere. I mean, other realtors probably don't have the websites like we have. It's very frustrating when that's the response. Okay, well then
I
get off my
know.
website if you've got a realtor.
Well, that's what I feel like saying. They need to pay for the service, not us.
Why don't you ask them? What's the
Yeah,
harm?
so
I ask. Hey, so okay, you've got an agent. Who is it? I probably know them. Okay, yeah, I know them or I don't know them. Does John have a website?
Okay.
Also ask them if they've actually signed a buyer agency agreement, and if they have, when does it expire?
If you ask them that, that's a great way to make a note, and then you can follow up with a to-do once it expires. Hey, we talked a while back. You told me your agency agreement expired. Did you buy a house? Okay.
Can I
Are you
ask
still
a
under
legitimate
agency with them?
question?
Go ahead.
Like, why does it bother you that they're on your website? If you trash them and you have a note that they have an agent, then just ignore it. If something happens and they don't buy a house with that agent, then they're on your website. So why does it bother you that they're on your website? I'm just asking, like, legitimately.
Well, it bothers
What?
me because they show up on my high interest that they've looked at a house, and I look at it on my phone, so it doesn't necessarily tell me that they're a trash lead. So then I'm gonna feel like I'm wasting time because I'm like, oh, she's interested. Then when I click on her name, I find out, oh, she already has a realtor,
In a situation like that, it's very important to show your competence, right? Okay. Hey, I appreciate you sharing that you're working with another agent. Are you under a buyer agency agreement? Oh, you are? Okay. When does it expire? Okay. Well, unfortunately, I can't help you with anything. And that includes sending you a search until that expires, because I don't want to be seen as interfering. It could cost me my license, and I'm not going to jeopardize my license and how I'm able to help my family. However, if you're not under agency, let me ask you this. If you're working with somebody, why'd you register on my site? Did they not have a site that you can use? Are they not sending you homes? Well, why would you want to work with them then?
Exact, Doug, you hit that like right on the head. That was perfect. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's what you do. Just get to the point.
Yep. And if they're no, so if to add to that though, the people who say they have agency, I follow like what Doug said is I'm like, okay, look, I can't send you houses anymore because it can be considered as interfering, blah, blah, blah. And then I go ahead and I stop sending them houses. I put a note in there for when their agency expires. And then I reach out when their agency is expired and I say, hey, I remember we talked a while back. Did you ever end up buying a house? And if they say no, I say, hey, look, well, clearly it didn't work out with you and your other agent. I'd love to be able to help you now that I wouldn't be interfering. I'm going to start sending you houses again based on what you were looking for.
So they're not supposed to be getting e-alerts if they've got another agent?
They can.
It really doesn't matter. It's what you're telling them. But that's how Ashley can get around them doing that stuff, if it's because they're looking at alerts. Now, you can't help it if they're searching on their own and stuff pops up, right? But I would turn the alerts off for people working with other agents so they're not popping up on my site.
Okay.
Yeah, you can do that, Ashley, on like when you dismiss them, you can dismiss them for just this time or for a month or 3 months. I can't remember what it says up there, but
That's
there's
pretty well
options
said.
to do that.
Yep.
So that you don't see it, for 3 months or something.
But I think that's great value that you're providing people to say, look, you have to understand how this works and why these agreements are in place, whether you're working with another agent or you're working with me. And I'm not going to be consciously corresponding with you. That's alliteration, I think. If I know you're working with somebody else. No offense, I don't want to provide you any value if you're working with somebody else, other than what I'm telling you right now, because you're not working with me. I'm not going to provide you value that your other agent isn't providing, so you can go write a contract with them. Sorry, I'm not going to do their job for them.
Yeah, right.
And I think it kind of speaks to adding to the professionalism of it, that like, hey, look, you can be on my site and all that, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Look, like, go on Zillow, go on realtor.com, get off my site because, I'm a professional. I do this day in and day out. If you just want to go look to see whatever's out there, fine, go and work with your friend who doesn't have a website. But when you're ready and you're not under agency, I'll be happy to help you. Obviously in a nicer way than what I just said it. But
That's just the blueprint, right? That you work from. And I said just, sorry.
I'm more
That's
like
the blueprint
Felicia.
that
I
you
don't
work
care. I don't see why you would want to cut someone's access off to your website. To me, I don't understand the logic behind that. They could
I
be
mean,
lying, first of all, and not have an agent and just not know what to say. They may have a family member who they figure out at some point doesn't know what it is they're doing. They may have an agent that they have an agreement with that falls out of place. I just got a buyer under contract on new construction who broke his agency agreement because he said on the phone, I sounded like I knew more in 2 minutes than the agent he was working with. And now he'll close on a new house in May. So, I mean, if you have to dismiss them in your now, you never know what's going to come of it. So, I mean, unless they explicitly tell me, cease communication with me for the rest of your natural life, I don't see why you would cut off someone's ELR. We can all
I mean,
do
I
things
don't
differently,
email
but I
them.
don't understand that.
I don't email them. I don't text them. I don't communicate with them. I don't like cut them off from my website. I don't see the point in it. I mean, it could turn into something, you know. It doesn't bother me that they're looking.
I agree. And, you know, you can do whatever you're comfortable with. I think it's good to have a discussion about how people are handling different things. So at least maybe you think about a different way to do it than you're doing it, if you're not happy with the way you're doing it. I do think it's a great opportunity to show your professionalism and how seriously you take it and the value that you can add up front in that initial conversation if they tell you they're working with another agent, to really frame how you go about things. Because to me, if you are actively, not passively, but actively reaching out to somebody, even to follow up, that you know has an agency agreement, it looks desperate.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be actively reaching out to anyone anyways, which I don't know one
I
is.
bet if
We're
we
just
asked
talking
that question,
general.
half of them wouldn't know when it expired. I bet they would have no clue.
Right. I mean, how many times people don't even know the name of the agent? And that's a good test close to see if they're actually lying to you if they're working with an agent, which I know Nate talks about doing that a lot. Charles mentioned it. Brandon mentioned it. Hey, who's your agent? Who are you working with? I probably know them. Jack, you don't know your agent's name? How much are they helping you if you don't know their name?
Well,
Are you
sometimes they
desperate?
don't even know if they are even under agency.
Yeah,
You'll be
exactly.
talking to them, well, I'm not under agency. And then later on down the road, oh, well, last month I put in an offer. Well, hold up. You put in an offer, you're
Then
under
you're under
agency with somebody.
Yeah.
You need to figure out if it was for a property or for a time frame. You
For sure.
signed something.
And that's a little CYA that we have to do when we're doing LP mammal, right? You got to make sure you're covering those bases.
It's a good way also to just kind of to basically show professionalism in addition to it when they say, oh, what's a buy, if you're like, hey, what's your buyer agency end? And they're like, what do you mean, what's a buyer agency? And then I'd segue into, well, has your agent explained to you what buyer agency is? And then they have no idea what they're talking about. Okay, great. How about we go ahead and set up a meeting for you to come by my office? Let's talk a little bit about things, because it doesn't appear that you have a buyer agency agreement.
Are you explaining working with real estate agents? Has the other agent you talked to explained working with real estate agents, or just agency in general? You know, make sure you're doing the professional piece.
So to follow up with that, every time I've given a buyer's consultation, they've all been like, thanked me for it. They've been like, this is such great information, and we wish we would have had this when we bought our first house. And like, it seems like they really appreciate it.
Yeah. I know some folks will send their buyer consult, send the PDF through Dotloop. Yeah, that's a great way to add value.
Yep.
To show how professionally you handle it so they understand how the process plays out.
I had a guy from California register a couple weeks ago, and he's like, you know what? I reached out to 3 agents. You're the only one that called me back. I'm using you. Talk shit the breeze for a long time. Apparently he owns this vineyard out there, and he's like, what's your favorite wine? Here's my website. I'm sending you and your family some. Here's my houses. I got 200 down. I'm coming out there in May. I got to get the hell out of here. I'm 12 miles from the wildfires. You're my person. Keep in touch.
That's
So,
great.
yeah.
What I want everybody to focus on is not the 9 calls
Yeah.
that you call and you don't reach anybody or you get hung up on. I want you to focus on what you do in the 1 call that works and make sure you're doing more of that. Because it makes a difference. And you guys start to see trends. And this is how we talk about this a lot. I've talked with probably 5 people on the phone and this week, and we've all said the same thing. Remember, it's about getting more efficient with what you're doing. You're constantly getting better at it. You're honing your craft. You're figuring out how to get where you need to be quicker, but because your scripting is getting better, because you're more confident, because you're more direct, because you listen better, because you acknowledge and ask better. All of that starts with being very intentional in what you're doing and being focused on what you're doing in the moment. You know, we've talked about before, just not prospecting because you know it's not worth it, because your mindset's not in the right, you're not in the right mindset. And it really, it's probably, you're not going to get anything out of those calls because you know you're not mentally prepared. I think it was Brandon that gave that example. It was a really good example. He was like, I'll just wait and not prospect because I know I'm not in the right headspace. Because it can honestly, for lack of a better term, do more damage. You know,
Doug, to follow up, I think that kind of goes in line with some of the language we were talking about earlier with Meredith. When you use words like just, you know, I think that it ties together a couple different points that people have made together today. You're not seeming confident. You're not seeming prepared. Just take the day off from doing it.
I think you're better off doing it that way. All right, great discussion. I don't think we need to belabor it and just keep talking to talk. So we won't do that. Hope it was really helpful for everybody. Tomorrow is Friday and it's New Year's, but we're not going to have a call because I'm sure most of you will be half alive at 9:30. So when you get a chance and you roll out tomorrow, post your DAR sheet so we can see where you are with your goals. As long as I don't have COVID, I'm planning on being in the office for our meeting Monday. I should find out today or tomorrow. So, and if I do, then we'll just do this. Yay. Calls, Adam, Meredith is at 10:30, but she has an appointment. Can I call you at 10:30 so we can get caught up from yesterday?
Sure.
Everybody else should be scheduled.
Y'all have a good celebration.
Yeah, you guys too. Happy New Year to everybody. I hope you have a great day.
Happy New
Call if you
Year.
need me. I'll see you in the group.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.